Good morning. Today we're going to talk about hypocrites, as you might have guessed. Anyway, and the definition of a hypocrite is a stage actor. In the Greeks, they would put masks on and pretend that they're somebody they're not. In Christianity, we know that what hypocrites are people that pretend to be more virtuous than they really are, or people that they condemn things that other people do that they do themselves. So it's just, it's a fakery. It's not being sincere. And Jesus had a lot to say about it. He condemned them severely, and we'll be looking at some of that, what he had to say about it. So, anyway, welcome everybody, especially the visitors that have come and taken time out to come instead of going into the park today to worship. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I think at some point, we all are kind of hypocrites at times. We all want to be perceived as being good people, righteous and upright, and virtuous, generous, all these kind of things. And so when we fake it sometimes that we're better than we are, and we really ought to look at ourselves, examine ourselves to see that we're not doing that. That we're sincere in what we do and the way we act. It's the pride in us that makes us do that. It's we need to be examining ourselves, and just before we condemn other people too. Not that other people that when they're doing wrong don't need to be condemned, but if you're doing it yourself, it kind of takes the effectiveness out of doing that. So it's just a matter of being honest, and we all know that we all fail in a lot of ways, and we need to just look at that and then face up to what we are. And if you're sincere, people see that, they recognize it, and they know that it comes, from your heart. If you're faking it, it's not long before people realize it and are put off by it. Today's Father's Day, and I wasn't really going to give a sermon on to fathers. I've heard some very good ones, but I just want to mention that if, as a father, and you are trying to, first of all, your children see you and they recognize who you are. They see you in your private life. They know if you're got control of your temper. They see how you handle problems, and you see, what's real. So if you put on airs in front of other people, and then you're living like you do at home, and it's different, your kids know it, and you're really doing them a huge disservice by doing that. It's the worst lesson you can give them. You need to be sincere and to you need to be humble with them too, and when you're wrong, you need to admit it, and they need to see that, and they need to, when we all as fathers have done things to our children that we mistreated them in certain ways, and if we're wrong in that, we need to apologize to them and to know that we're truly sorry about it, and just show that we're vulnerable and just to have a humble attitude. And I think that does more for your children. If they see you living a life that isn't honest, and it's, you're pretending you're one thing in front of some people, and then at home you're different, it's a huge disservice to your children. So that's all I'm going to say to pick on the fathers today, but I think it's good advice that we need to be honest. Jesus had harsh words to say to the hypocrites. By calling them, he just spoke out and called them, you hypocrites. Usually it was the Sadducees and the Pharisees and hypocrites, he would say. But what's he saying when he's saying that? He's basically saying, you liars, you fakers, you frauds, you're pretending to be one thing, you're pretending to be holy and righteous, and you're not. You're just actors. You're not that at all. So, it's a harsh word, and we don't want to be falling into that category. I'm going to look at a few scriptures where Jesus talks to them. First one I wanted to look up is Luke 13, it's, through 10 through 17. And this is about Jesus healing on the Sabbath. Let's look up. I'm supposed to have these marked. There we go. Okay, now, so it starts out, it says, now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and there was a woman who had a disabling spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not fully straighten herself. Jesus saw her, and he called her over and said to her, woman, you are freed from your disability. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God. But because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, said to the people, there are 6 days, But the rulers of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, said to the people, there are 6 days in which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. And here's what Jesus said to them. Then the Lord answered him, you hypocrites, does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to water it? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, who Satan bound for 18 years, be loosed from the bonds on the Sabbath day? As he said these things, all the adversaries were put to shame, and all the people rejoiced at the glorious things that were done. So here's people, they don't work on the Sabbath, but they were doing, by untying your donkey, I guess that's considered something that you're doing as a work, and you're leading a donkey to water, which he needs the water. So they're doing a good thing on the Sabbath for their animals, but they're condemning Jesus for healing a woman on the Sabbath. So let's look at a couple more of these. I shouldn't have brought my songbook up here. I don't know what that is either. Let's look at Matthew 6, and there's quite a bit of. He mentions quite a bit about the hypocrites. So Matthew 6, and we'll start at verse 2 there. It says, beware, this is Jesus speaking, and it says, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. For then you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So he's talking about not, putting on airs to appear more righteous or more holy than you really are. And he talks about this, that they're going to have a reward, and that reward is that they're going to be looked at by other men as being something special. But in God's eyes, they're not. And he's saying if you're doing it just to be an actor or a men pleaser, you're not going to get a reward from the Lord. He says, thus when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you that they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Well, it's kind of hard, when we give something, we do like a little recognition. But he was saying, if you got the faith in God, and you know that God sees you, then you should be happy with what he's going to do. He's going to reward you, and his reward is going to be much better than the praise of men. If whenever they're doing a fundraising thing, like they're building a hospital or whatever, or the library, they often say, if you give so much, we'll put your name on a brick. If you give a little more, we'll put your name on the wall. If you give so much more, we'll make your name even bigger. And this is a big enticement for people to give. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but Christ is saying if you do that kind of thing, if you were just doing it to be seen and to get your name recognized and to appear like you're a altruistic person, that it's much better just to do what you do, the good that you do in private, without really calling much attention to yourself, because then God's going to be looking at it. He says he's going to give you a reward, and that reward is going to be a lot better than just people stepping on your brick and saying, "Oh, there's so and so." Although I like to look at the names on the bricks. Yeah. They got them in front of the library and the hospital and everywhere else. But the important thing is you want to be doing your stuff to please the Lord, and it's the people are going to benefit by what you give, but you don't need to be calling attention to yourself. And then he goes on with the prayer here. He says, and when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for the many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Pray then like this, and then he gives the Lord prayer. He gives the prayer that we, our Father prayer. So he's saying, it's okay, I'm in the restaurant. I would like to pray to bless our food before we pray. Is that inappropriate? I think it's a good thing. It's not, but just as long as you're not doing it to call attention to yourself that you're a righteous person, that you're something that you're really not. If there are public prayers and there are, but when you're going to God, these guys would get on the street and then and pray and make a big deal about it and say a lot of things and speak in big flowery words and just do things to call attention to yourself. And Jesus says that's not good. If you're praying sincerely to God, to go in and talk to him in private, and he's going to hear your prayers. And it shouldn't be that we're making a show of our prayers. If you go to the Israel, in front of the wall, they got the Wailing Wall there, and you see quite a display of praying. And Jesus is saying, they don't need you to pretend that you're righteous. They don't need to pretend that you're holy by doing this show of a prayer. All right, let's see. What else does he say here? And if we go a little farther in fasting, he says, when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, and their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. All right, so he's saying, you can do this if you're fasting. These guys would try to look as miserable as they could, since people say, that guy is really suffering. He's really, what a devoted guy he is. He's trying to, and Christ says that those people that are looking at him, they're feeling sorry for him. He's getting his reward, but what a puny reward that is. So this is, a question, and this is is it wrong is it hypocritical to dye your hair? Your hair is really white, but you make it black or whatever color you make it. Is that a hypocritical thing, or putting on lipstick to make your lips look better than they really were? And I think that's a fine thing. It's good what Jesus is saying here is wash your face, put ointment on your hair. It's basically look your best. So I think it's perfectly okay to look your best and to do the things that's going to do that. It's not, but you shouldn't be looking your worst so that you're wanting people to feel sorry for you because you're fasting. He's saying fast, but do it in a way that it doesn't call attention to yourself. But he says, basically, look your best. Wash your face, comb your hair, put ointment on your hair. All right, and so let's see. Let's look at a couple more things. Matthew 7:5. And here it says, well, here I'll go on the whole thing. He says, judge not that you be not judged. For the judgment you pronounce will be judged, and with the measure you use it will be measured to you. So this is probably the best known scripture in the whole Bible there, is because as soon as you say something to somebody about what they're doing, they give you this scripture, judge not. Who are you to judge me? That kind of thing. But we're told, that we're supposed to recognize people by their fruits. Is that not judgment? So I think it's just, that we need to look at ourselves as we're making these discretions that we see. It doesn't. Let's look at it a bit more here. It says, why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is a log in your own eye, you hypocrite? First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not... Okay, so your brother has a speck in his eye, and that needs to be removed. It needs to come out. And he's talking about sin. So you're looking at your brother and you're finding a fault in him, and you're saying, you really need to take care of that. But at the same time, he's saying you have a log in your own eye, and so your sin is much greater, and you are condemning your brother here and doing it. And it's not that he doesn't need to be condemned. It's just that you need to look at yourself and make sure that your eyes are clear to see that the sin is out of your life, so that you can make a righteous judgment on the thing about your brother. So, and this is, the definition of a hypocrite. You're condemning things that you're doing yourself. Okay, and then Matthew 15:7, he says, you hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, when he said, "This people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain they do worship me, teaching his doctrines and commandments of men." So it's just, it's a matter of pride that we get into this kind of thing of doing things that aren't sincere and that aren't true. So, nice prayers and beautiful words are you like to hear that in a prayer, but you want to hear it from people that are sincere in what they believe and practice what they're praying about. So it's so the basic thing is to be honest, to be true, to be something real. Don't be putting on a mask on. Wasn't a very good mask. I made it. I was trying to make it happy, but it didn't look. It didn't look that good. It looked kind of. My wife said it was scary. All right, so Jesus had more to say about hypocrites. Let's look at Matthew 23:25. He says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." Basically liars, cheaters, frauds. "For you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside you're full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that outside also may be clean." So, it's just talking about you can have a really nice dish to clean the outside, but if the inside's got food left over and it's not clean, it's not good, it's worse. It's much better to clean the inside and let the outside be dirty. But he's saying that's what he's comparing those people to that. "Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, and hypocrites." This is verse 27. "For you are like whitewashed tombs, who outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness." So, these tombs, they whitewashed them. So they didn't want people stepping on tombs, so they washed them white, and they looked real beautiful. But, a tomb, inside it's dead men's bones. And he's just saying, on the outside, you guys look great, but on the inside, you're rotten. And we don't want to be like that. "Woe to you, scribes," this is 29, "and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you build the tombs of the prophets and desecrate the monuments of the righteous, saying, if we had lived in those days of our fathers, we would have not taken part with them in the shedding of blood of the prophets. Thus you witness against yourselves that you are the sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up the measure of your fathers, you serpents, you brood of vipers. How are you to escape being sentenced to hell? Therefore I send you prophets and wise men and scribes, some of whom you killed and crucified, and some you will flog in your synagogues and persecute from town to town, so that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of the innocent Abel to the blood of Zechariah the son of Barachiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation." So Jesus is quite upset with the way, with the fakery. They act righteous, but in their hearts and in their actions, what they really were is not righteous, even though they put on a good front. And it should be a lesson to us. We shouldn't be putting on a front. And to do that, you have to get rid of some of your pride, what pulls it to us. It does it to all of us, that we want to appear so well and so good, but in reality, are we? And it's not that we're trying to, as a Christian, you want to be trying to be good and righteous, and it's just that we're vulnerable and that we know that Jesus, we're putting our trust in Him to make up for the difference. We're not make up for the difference, but we're putting our trust in Him He's paid for your salvation. He paid for to be free in God. He paid for you to be looked at God as having no sin. So we shouldn't be faking it that we don't have any sin or that we're better than we are, because we need to we need Christ. We need what He did. All of us need that. And so we can't just go on and pretend that we're so good, because we're all in this together, and we all know from where we've fallen, and we all know where we need to be, and it's a constant journey to be there. So the other thing about being a hypocrite, and I think that all of us have experienced this, is that we all know people that say, I don't go to church anymore because those people are just hypocrites. They don't practice what they are teaching. They're fakes, they're frauds. And so they quit going to church because of that, or they quit becoming a Christian, and they get back into the ways of the world. And I just, I hope that I haven't done that to anybody, but it's possible. But the person that does that, it's just, don't ever let somebody influence you by whatever they do to give up on Christ. Christ is no hypocrite. He came and He died for you. He paid for your salvation with His blood. He paid for you to be seen as sinless before God and to offer you eternal life with Him. And so why would you let somebody, no matter what they do, no matter how fraudulent they act, and no matter how they are, why would you let that person keep you from loving Christ, from turning from Him? But we see it all the time, and that's the most common excuse, is somebody doesn't, we see them and they're not with us anymore. Oh, they're just a bunch of hypocrites, so I quit going. Or my dad was a hypocrite, or this guy was a hypocrite. Don't let that keep you from Jesus. He's not a hypocrite. He's the real thing. He loves you. He bought you. So don't let that stand in your way. So Christ wants us to love Him. He wants us to be close to Him. He wants us to be honest and sincere. He wants us to treat others fairly, and He doesn't want us faking it. He doesn't want us hiding, what we do. Things should be in the open, and we should be honest with one another. Anyway, if anybody has a need, anybody wants the prayers of the church or any other thing, have them come and we'll talk to them. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for coming.